Bam. My peoples. My peoples. Richardson Hitchins beat George Kambosos in spectacular fashion this weekend. He showed that he's on another level. You saw the jab, the footwork, the combination punching, the counter punching. You saw it all from Richardson Hitchins. And after the fight, he said that he's now a free agent. Well, Eddie Hearn isn't happy about him making that statement. And, there's been conversations about that. We got to talk about it, my people. We got to talk about it. This is a interesting situation, and we have to see how it's going to develop. But let's talk about it, man. Y'all already know what it is. I'm Jay Smith. This is Box Center, your favorite boxers, favorite boxing show. So, yep, there's seems to be a bit of controversy, if you will, between Richardson Hitchins and Eddie Hearn. Um, After winning in spectacular fashion, Hitchins, Teofimo went in the ring. He said, "Look, we could fight next. I'm a free agent." I don't know if he told Teofimo that he's a free agent, but he told him we could fight next. And he called out Devin Haney, said F the Haneys. So, he definitely made it a point to say that he's a free agent. El fantasma de Geraldo Ledén. Salute, my brother. And, Eddie Hearn is not happy about that. I've seen a statement where Eddie's saying, that they invested a lot of money in him. And for him to now do this, it's unfortunate. And also that I think it was a post from Eddie Hearn himself where he says that His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh will only work with Richardson Hitchins if it's through Matchroom. So it's almost like Hitchins will be blocked out of anything that they do unless Hitchins comes through with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Um, Now, this is a situation that I will have to say is unfortunate. I don't like it for either side because you have to put yourself in both sides of the situation, right? If you look at Eddie Hearn, buen día, mi amor. If you look at Eddie Hearn, he's invested a lot of money. Matchroom has invested a lot of money in promoting Richardson Hitchens and getting him to this point where now he's a world champion. He's a lot more popular. So obviously, if you invest in someone, you want to get a return on your investment, right? Makes perfect sense. Now the contract has a certain length or a certain amount of fights. If Richardson Hitchens, ended the contract with that fight, then he does become a free agent until they work out a new contract, right? And that's if they decide to work out a new contract. They decide to, continue to work together. Having said that, I personally don't see what's wrong with Hitchens publicly announcing that he's a free agent, because he is. That's the reality of it. He's saying, "Hey, look, I'm open to doing business." And as a free agent, you should be able to do that because now you're able to gauge your market value. What's wrong with that? I say, you know what? If Eddie Hearn wanted, what's the deal, Alex? Appreciate you dropping in, my brother. If Eddie Hearn wanted to continue to work with Richardson Hitchens after this fight, I think they should have had a conversation beforehand. He should have pulled him aside. Hey, look, this fight, this next fight, your contract is up. We want to make sure we're able to re up. Let's talk about it. Let's see, what it is that you want, what it is that we want, and work on it to make it happen. So I think that should have been a conversation that was, handled before the fight. So I don't like the fact that, they never spoke about it, and now all of a sudden, Richardson Hitchins beats, defends his title successfully against George Kambosos, and by surprise, I guess, announces that he's a free agent. Because if you think about it, leading up to this fight, I don't know if it was public knowledge that Hitchens was going to become a free agent after this fight, but I read, that information wasn't really in my radar. I wasn't aware of it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people, watching this and who follow boxing were not aware that he was going to become a free agent. So it's almost like that was a secret, and Hitchens let it out the bag after his fight. I think personally, Hitchens should have went to Eddie Hearn first before this fight. Hey Eddie, look, I'm gonna be a free agent. I want to test the market, or let me know, you know, if you want to make an offer before I become a free agent that I can consider. Those conversations should have took place. And I think from Eddie Hearn too, as the promoter, if I want to continue to work with this fighter, I think Eddie Hearn should have also pulled Hitchens aside and, hey, look, let's make sure that we're able to re-up before the contract is up. Let's see what we're both happy with and make something happen. But, neither party negotiated a new contract, and that's it. This one finished. So basically, Hitchens is a free agent, and I don't see nothing wrong with him, making that public, because I believe, that's how you're going to get leverage. Other people being interested in signing you, and it could even be a bidding war to see who's gonna get Richardson Hitchens on their roster. Now, Turkey Allow Sheik also chimed in. He said that Hitchens is not loyal, and I don't agree with His Excellency Turkey Allow Sheik. Lately, I haven't agreed with a lot of things that he's been saying. But the reason I say that is because Richardson Hitchens fulfilled his contract with Matchroom for all his fights. That was, stipulated in the contract. He did what he was supposed to do. Why would you say he's not loyal? Are you saying that once a contract is up, an athlete, a fighter cannot explore other options? That's going to make him disloyal? I don't think so. I don't see it that way. Now, if he signs the contract and within the time frame where the contract is still active, he tries to do something else, then I'm going to say, okay, that's a problem. But the guy fulfilled his contract with Matchroom, and he's looking for other options, or trying to see, what the market value for him is. So let's see how this whole situation plays out. I don't like the fact that Turkey said the only way that he'll work with Richardson Hitchens is if it's via Matchroom. Because again, it's like you're trying to force a fighter to only fight if they're signed to them. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That wouldn't be a good relationship. If Hitchens talks to Eddie and they work it out and they decide to do another contract, it'll be great. They'll do great things. But if Richardson Hitchens is forced to fight under Matchroom, like, nah, you gotta do this then. If you don't sign, you can't. If he's forced to, it's not gonna be a good relationship because he doesn't want to be there. So, that's not just for Matchroom. That goes for Golden Boy, PBC, Queensbury, Top Rank, and all the other promoters. If you try to force a fighter to stay with you, that relationship is gonna go sour, and it won't take long before that happens. Can't do it. Can't do it. So if we sign a contract and we agree to, let's say, 2 years, or let's say 4 fights, whatever it is that we agree to, once that contract is up, you can't tell me that I'm disloyal if I choose not to sign another contract. What if somebody else offers me more money or a better deal? I can't leave? I gotta re-sign with you for the rest of my life, or until you decide that you don't want me no more. So I see both sides of the coin. I understand that Matchroom made an investment on Richardson Hitchens, but you make an investment to get your return on that investment while that contract is running. So if you sign somebody for 2 years, if it's a good contract, if it's a favorable contract, you're both going to, get money from it. You're both going to get financial gains. So they should have made money off of Richardson Hitchens while the contract was running. To say, well, we invested a lot of money and now he's gone. Well, if his contract is up, he has a right to leave. He has a right to leave. Now, should he stay with Matchroom? Let's see. Now, because of the friction, they have some working to do to fix that relationship. But I think that Richardson Hitchens pointed out that he's a free agent because he's interested in fighting Teofimo Lopez. And Teofimo is not signed to Matchroom or to His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh, or has, business with His Excellency. So he wants some fights. He wants to fight Tank Davis. That's not gonna happen. He's not gonna get Tank Davis in the ring. But what I'm thinking is that he wanted some fights that are elsewhere, and for that reason, he pointed out that he's a free agent. That's the only reason I see it. But again, I think, on both sides, there seems to be. I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not there, but there seems to be a lack of communication on both sides. I think before Hitchens fought Cambosos, they should have ironed out those details. They should have talked about it. Hey, what are we gonna do next? Are we gonna sign a new deal? How much that deal is gonna be for? What are we looking at? How many fights? How many years? How much money? Those conversations should have been had before Hitchens fought Cambosos, as opposed to him becoming a free agent and maybe Eddie Hearn and people from Matchroom expect him to stay quiet and not say that he's a free agent. And on his side, he's like, yes, I'm a free agent. I'm not on the contract. Let me let the people know. So I would say he has the right to say that he's a free agent. And that's not being disloyal. Because again, as an athlete, you have to also look out for yourself and find what's in your best interest. Because at the end of the day, boxers do not have a long career. Most boxers don't fight 20 years and 22, 23. Nah. Boxers, 6 years, 7 years, 10, and you done, cooked. So when you're in a stage in your career where you have some leverage, where you can make some money, you gotta look out for yourself. Gotta look out for yourself. El fantasma de Geraldo Ledén. Oh, my brother. So I understand Richardson Hitchens. And I also understand the situation with Eddie Hearn, taking into account, how much money they invested, and them taking him, to becoming a world champion. Obviously, now Richardson Hitchens is at the height of his popularity. So they're going to want to re-sign him. But again, that's business that should have been handled before he became a free agent. At least that's my opinion, my peoples. Got some good fights coming up. Good fights. I I keep telling y'all, this whole Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda card is gonna be fire. This weekend we had a great card. You have to look at, and wow, the favorites all performed, in amazing ways. If you look at Zaquin Moses, stopped his opponents, put the beat down on him. Yo, Shakur Stevenson's cousin was on fire. You heard of a heat-seeking missile? His jab was a nose and a mouth and a forehead-seeking missile. That jab was like pop, 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 real fast. He kept, catching his opponent with it, snapping his head back. Yo, Zachary Moses was on fire. Combination punching, the footwork, body punching. Yo, he was just on fire. And got the stoppage early. You see, Andy Cruz, another jab that looked like a rocket launcher. Bang, bang, bang. Snapping his opponent's neck to the back. Andy Cruz showed that he's, on another level. Want to see what is Andy Cruz going to do next. And I know that eventually we are going to get Andy Cruz versus Keyshawn Davis. And that's going to be a super fight. Honestly, I'm not desperate for that one right now. I'm okay with it brewing a little bit. Allowing them to both be more popular than what they are today before they finally meet up. It's going to be a mega fight. There's gonna be the hype about Andy Cruz beating Keyshawn Davis in the amateurs multiple times, and now they get to have a rematch as professionals. That fight is gonna happen. Can't wait. But Andy Cruz was spectacular, my peoples. And then, of course, in the main event, Richardson Hitchins versus George Kambosos. You seen it. You seen it yourself. Richardson Hitchins was standing in front of Kambosos, trading leather with him. After Kambosos had said throughout the lead up to the fight, don't run, or he's going to run from me, or, I'm going to chase him around, and all this stuff about Richardson Hitchins running in the fight. There was no running. Richardson Hitchins put hands and feet on George Kambosos. Humbled him down. By the end of the fight, Kambosos was talking about, well, I hope people appreciate it. I fight everybody. And, I'm a warrior. Got your ass beat. Got beat up. I got love for George Kambosos, though. I was saying it throughout the fight that he's a warrior. He was being outboxed, being outclassed, but still fighting, still going hard. So much respect. Salute to George Kambosos. Crap. Yes, sir. What's the deal, my G? But again, Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. The headline for that card is Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz. I really like that fight because for a while now, I've been kind of down on Edgar Berlanga. He had a couple of performances where he kind of struggled versus lesser-known opponents. Then his fight with Canelo Alvarez, which it just didn't even look like Berlanga was out there to win. It looked like he was out there to survive, to get a moral victory by saying, oh, look, I went the distance and Canelo didn't knock me out. It looked like that was enough for him to just say, I didn't get knocked out. He didn't risk it. And I didn't like that at all. It made me feel like, damn, Berlanga, is he one of these guys that's he has talent, but he's there for the money, trying to make dough, and, he wasn't going to try to get knocked out. He wasn't going to try to risk getting knocked out by Canelo Alvarez, and that's the performance that he turned in, which was just survive. Croc, what up from Motor City? Ooh, Detroit in the building. What's the deal, my G? Appreciate you dropping in, man. We talking boxing. You already know how we do it, my brother. Amar Singh, you are Topa. I don't know what Topa is, my brother. So Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz, I've been down a bit for the reasons I said on Edgar Berlanga, but let's see. Let's see if he can beat Hamza Shiraz. Hamza is for real. He can fight. He got power. Tall guy, rangy, got reach. Let's see. Can Edgar Berlanga get past Hamza Shiraz? We're gonna find out. If he can, then I'll say, okay, yeah, he good. He's gonna keep going up. Cause for a moment there, I've been feeling like maybe Edgar Berlanga is gonna be one of these fighters who who is good but doesn't get to the top. He beats the regular guys, but when he fight the top dogs, he gets beat. So Hamza Shiraz is gonna be his toughest test, besides Canelo Alvarez, of course, of his career. Let's see how he's able to handle it. So before Edgar Berlanga and Hamza Shiraz, we are gonna get Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda. I expect Shakur to be nothing less than spectacular. Watch. Watch. To all the haters that say Shakur's boring and he runs, watch. William Zepeda is gonna get all type of hands put on him. And I know that he's gonna go in there applying that pressure. He's gonna, he understands that the only way he beats Shakur Stevenson is by knocking him out. William Zepeda has said himself that he's going out there to knock him out. But that's because he knows he has zero possibility of outboxing Shakur. So now he's going to try to turn it into a slugfest. He's going to try to turn it into one of those type of fights. And he doesn't understand, but he'll find out Shakur's ready for that. He's going to get beat up. To those people who think that Shakur got to run or that, he's scared and all that stuff, he can beat these dudes inside of a phone booth. It doesn't matter. Point blank range, you still getting beat up. That's just the way it's going down, my people. The inevitable. We're also getting on that same card Subriel Matias versus, I can't remember, man, my Dominican brother's name. If anybody, Rosario, what is, my peoples, if anybody can remind me in the chat the name of the fighter who's gonna face Subriel Matias. I know that he's Dominican, but it's not Rosario. Can't remember his name right now. But that's gonna be a good fight. Subriel is gonna get his first title shot. Alberto Puello, yes, there you go. Alberto Puello is the world champion, and Subriel Matias is gonna get his first title shot since he lost his own title. Let's see. He's already had 2 fights on his way back, and it's gonna be a good fight. It's going to be a very good fight because Alberto Puello is a guy that can box, who has real good footwork, who has range. Subriel Matias is going to have to eat some punches trying to get on the inside. Croc, I respectfully disagree with you on Shakur. What do you mean? What exactly do you mean, my brother? And it's okay, look, I don't expect everybody to agree with me. When it comes to an opinion, everyone is going to have their own, and I respect it. But what do you mean, or do you think that the fight is going to play out differently between Shakur and Zepeda? What is it exactly? Because I said a lot of things. But again, Subriel Matias versus Alberto Puello, that's going to be a very interesting fight. Good matchup. You have the boxer versus the puncher in Subriel Matias, and we have to see how he can adapt. How Subriel Matias is going to be able to, get on the inside to get his punches off. He likes to let them hands fly. But we have to see it. I think that's going to be a very, very competitive fight. And, I find it hard to bet against Alberto Puello, my Dominican brother, because he's a good fighter. He's a reigning champion for a reason. But I also find it hard to go against Subriel Matias. We know what he brings to the table. We know the type of power that he has. Let's see how it plays out, my people. It's going to be an interesting fight for sure. And, of course, before that, we're going to get David Morrell in his return after losing to David Benavidez. And that's one of my favorite fighters right now. I've been telling people, do not sleep on David Morrell. I know we live in an era where, we discredit fighters as soon as they take a loss. We're like, oh yeah, he's a bum. He's not that good anymore. He's a hype jab. All that stuff. But David Morrell, I believe that he will become a world champion. I don't know who he's going to beat for a title. When is it going to happen? But he's that good. Losing to the Mexican monster, you lost to the guy. You lost to the guy, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that he's a hype job or that he's not going to make it anymore. Nah, David Morrell's a top level guy. Crap. Shakur is probably the most skillful boxer out there, but he's boring and he has no power. So here's the deal. I think the boring narrative is pretty much spread by the people that don't like him. Just the same case that it was with Floyd Mayweather. Why do I say that, Croc? Take a look at the fight with Shakur Stevenson and Jamel Herring and tell me that fight was boring. Shakur stopped him in the 10th, was picking him apart throughout the fight and stopped him. Check out the fight with Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez, which went the distance, but Shakur was putting hands and feet on Valdez. But what will be the reference to say that Shakur is boring? The De Los Santos fight. Yeah, but look at De Los Santos. He didn't throw no punches. But look at how many fights he's had in his career, my brother. And people will only focus on that one fight to determine his whole career. But every one of his fights hasn't played out like that one. He has fights where he stopped opponents, where he knocked the play. His last opponent, Josh Padley, he stopped him. So we can't cling on to the fight where it wasn't a great performance to say that, to act like that's been his whole career, because that has not been the case. But this is what I think, Croc. Check this out. What I think is that because of what people keep saying about him being boring and running and all that stuff, I think that he's going to perform versus William Zepeda the way that he did versus Valdez and Herring. We're going to see a more aggressive Shakur, a Shakur that's going to stand in there and trade leather with him, and that's going to be using less footwork. We're going to see that. And people will find out that Shakur has the skills to beat guys inside of a phone booth, bro. He don't need to. He could stand right there in front of you and still beat your ass. And I think we saw that with Oscar Valdez, who said out of his own mouth, yo, Shakur will be right there. When I will punch, he will move just a little bit like this, and my punch will pass by, but I would just miss him. And he would just keep doing that over and over, making me miss by just a little. So, when you watch Shakur versus Valdez or versus Jamel Herring, nobody said that he was running in those fights. Nobody said that he was boring in those fights. Nobody. But as soon as he fought this guy, oh, look, he don't throw no punches. He's too boring. Croc, Shakur or Tank? I mean, that's easy. But I'll just put it to you like this. Without answering the question, I'll ask you a question. Have you ever seen Tank Davis say, I want to fight Shakur? Simple as that. I know you've seen Shakur say, I want to fight Tank. I know you've seen those interviews. I know you've seen a bunch of videos of Shakur saying, I want Tank. But have you ever seen Tank say, I want Shakur? Just think about that. So the question is not even Shakur or Tank, because we might not get that fight. The real question is, who wants to fight who and who don't want to fight? We know Shakur want to fight Tank Davis badly. So my question for you, my brother, do you think Tank Davis want to fight Shakur? Be honest. Keep it 100. Do you think Tank want that smoke? Taking into account that Tank Davis is one of the few fighters in the unique position where he could fight whoever he wants. He could handpick his opponent. Most fighters can't do that. Most fighters fight whoever the matchmaker put in front of them. Tank Davis is one of the very few that can say, I want this guy, and he's going to get him. El Fantasma de Geraldo Ledén. Nope. I agree with you, my brother. You don't want that fight. David, what's up, Jay Smith? Soon to be MSM, boxing, an analyst. Ooh, you already know, my G. I'm just waiting for to get that call. Eddie Hearn know what's going on. He be watching these videos, man. Eddie Hearn should have been hit me up, but I'm still waiting for you, Eddie. Will you sell out money, but then you can't say what's on your mind and go with their narrative? Nah, my brother. Nah. I'm going to always say what I got to say, my brother. I'm not going to, put myself in a situation where I'm just going to be given a script to say what somebody else want me to say. No way. That's why I created Box Center specifically. Now, if you want me to be a guest on your show, I'll go be a guest if you want me to stick with some script. But nah, Jay Smith is going to tell you what I got to tell you. Period. But again, man, when it comes to Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis, we see it. Tank expresses no interest in wanting to fight Shakur. None. And I'll tell you that Tank even flip-flopped on Shakur because at some point he said that they was going to send him a contract. He said it. We're going to send him an offer. And they never did. They never sent him a contract offer. And then he went from saying, we're going to send him a contract offer, to now he be getting mad when reporters ask him, yo, you going to fight Shakur? What he done? What he done? What he done to fight him? Like, what? What you mean what he done? That sounds like duck language. What do you mean what he done? Crap. Tank was schooled well from Floyd Mayweather. I mean, Tank understand the importance of staying undefeated. And he's not going to fight somebody like Shakur Stevenson who's probably going to give him that L. He's not having it. Not having it. And it's crazy because we see it right in front of our eyes. Like Shakur Stevenson, it's almost like for the last few fights, every time he wins, Tank Davis is one of the names that he's going to call out. Yet Tank Davis, he's not having it. So we know the duck is real, but people are on denial about it. Oh, nah, Tank Davis, he don't got to fight him, and he not, he not going to lose to Shakur, he's going to knock him out. A lot of people say Tank will knock Shakur out. And I tell those people, Tank don't believe you. Tank does not believe you, my brother, that he's going to knock Shakur out. Because if he believed you, he would have been knocked him out. Cypher 22. Tank got more emotional being questioned about Shakur more than single mom over her baby daddy. I'm trying to tell you. Before, they would ask him about Shakur and he'd be like, yeah, he's on the list. He's on the list too. I don't know the mythical list that Tank Davis had that we never really seen, and apparently Jake Paul is next on that list. But now, recently when they asked him about him, Tank been like, nah, he haven't done nothing. Why I gotta fight him? What happened? You say he was on the list. Now he ain't done nothing? Croc, watch what Tank do to Roach. I don't know, bro. I don't know about all that. I saw 12 rounds of Tank versus Roach. And I didn't see no signs of Tank doing nothing to Roach in the next fight. If anything, I'm like, watch what Roach gonna do to Tank in the next one. He gonna win more convincingly. And you know what? I got Roach winning the rematch. I said that. I said it. That's right. I got Lamont Roach beating Tank Davis in the rematch. Why? Because of the way that the first fight played out. I had Lamont winning the first fight. Even without the knee. We know about knee gate. Grease in the eye gate. Even without that, I still had Lamar Roach winning that fight. So I feel like he just has to obviously win more convincingly the next time around. But I feel like he can. Crack, bet 20. Now, I don't bet money, my brother, not like this online. I only bet, like, through websites. But I'm trying to tell you. My brother. Lamar Roach showed us the blueprint to beat Tank Davis in the first fight. Now, I ask you, Croc, what makes you feel confident that Tank Davis is going to beat Lamar Roach? Based on what you saw in that first fight, what makes you feel like he can beat Lamar Roach? When you and I both know that he was gifted that draw. Now, I hope there isn't a single person on this chat right now that's going to tell me that Tank Davis was not gifted that draw. Let's keep it real, my peoples. And by the way, let's hit that like button, man. Don't treat me like I'm a C-level fighter getting pummeled out here. 4 likes, y'all doing me wrong, my peoples. But again, Tank Davis versus Lamar Roach. The first one, if you see how competitive that fight was, why would you think Tank Davis going to knock Lamar Roach out in the second one? Maker, what is the blueprint to beat Tank? By the way, I had Lamar in the first. Yeah, I had Lamar Roach winning. So here's the blueprint that Lamar Roach used on Tank Davis. And he already has it. Number 1, you cannot fight Tank Davis defensively. If you fight Tank Davis in a defensive matter, he's going to catch up to you and break you down. That's number 1. You saw Lamar Roach actually walking Tank Davis down, bringing the fight to him for 12 rounds. Whenever Tank Davis stood his ground, Lamar Roach stood his ground with him and traded leather with him. So Tank Davis is a fighter that you got to beat him from point blank range. You cannot beat him. If you're going to use your footwork and move around, he's going to walk you down. And eventually he's going to catch you. So with Tank Davis, you have to be aggressive. You have to outwork him. He has a very high ring IQ. You're not just going to outbox him from the outside and use your little footwork. You're not. You got to put that pressure on him like Lamar Roach did. And you saw the results. That's the blueprint to beat Tank Davis. And if you remember, the closest person to beating Tank was Pitbull Cruz. And he applied that pressure too throughout the fight. But Lamar Roach was more effective on the inside when it comes to making them miss and making them pay. Crap. Tank started late. But he does that in all his fights, my brother. You're right. Tank started late, but he's a late starter. Look at his fight with Ryan Garcia, with Frank Martin, with Rolis Romero, with Leo Santa Cruz. In all of those fights, he lost early rounds. In all of them. He was doing with Lamar Roach what he always does. Taking his time, timing him, figuring him out, and I'm going to pick up the pace later and knock him out. He couldn't knock him out. When he finally started to make a run and digging hard with those punches and the hard counter punches and trying to set him up with the counter left, it never happened. He never landed that big shot. That punch that he dropped Frank Martin with, Ryan Garcia, Rolis, that counter, boom, it never happened. He couldn't do it on Lamar Roach. And the thing is that I want y'all to consider, Lamar Roach didn't go the distance with Tank Davis by running or by surviving or by just using the jab and the footwork. He went the distance with him by taking it to him right into the front door in the living room. He took it to Tank Davis for 12 rounds. Nobody expected that, my peoples. Even Tank was saying, I know how you're going to fight. I'm going to have to chase him around. Man, I'm ready for that. Nobody was ready for Lamar Roach to actually be taking it to Tank. Okay, and that's the thing. The bully is never used to that. The bully is used to bullying the other fighter. But when now you got somebody on you like white on rice, how do you react? That's why Tank Davis was out of character. You saw him complaining to the referee, taking a knee, turning his back on his opponent and the ref. He had Tank Davis out of character because of that pressure that he was applying on him. Croc, Tank beat Pitbull Cruz with one hand. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And it's funny because I was watching that fight live and I say, yo, Tank hurt his hand. The moment it happened, Tank Davis made a noise. Like he punched him and he went, ah! And then he kept fighting. And I said, yo, he hurt his hand. And a lot of people told me, nah, he didn't hurt his hand. You wilding out. And then after the fight, man, he took out that glove. That hand looked like it was another glove. Like it was a glove in the glove. Swole up. But he beat Pitbull with one hand. However, Pitbull still showed that there was a difference in being aggressive with Tank Davis, taking it to him. You know, you had a shot to beat him like that. He beat Pitbull Cruz, but it was the most competitive fight that we've seen Tank Davis in. So that tells you, well, wait a minute, there's something here. And Lamar Roach had a similar approach as far as being aggressive, but was a lot better than Pitbull with his defense. Made Tank Davis miss a lot. Boxing on paper. Is Andy Cruz ready for a Tank level fight? Andy Cruz is ready for a Tank level fight, my guy. Real talk. Andy Cruz is that good, bro. Ready for Tank Davis. But Tank Davis won't fight him. Tank Davis won't fight. I don't see it. If Tank don't want to fight Keyshawn, he don't want to fight Shakur, he don't want to fight Teofimo, Andy Cruz is that type of fighter too. He's not going to fight him either. And I'll put it to you like this. Andy Cruz is one of them. If you know what I mean, one of them. The Teofimos, the Devins, the Shakurs, Andy, one of them. And by the way, Richardson Hitchins showed us on Saturday that he one of them. Boxing on paper, it doesn't look like anyone wants to smoke with Andy Cruz. Yo, Andy Cruz is for real. Well, to be fair, Keyshawn Davis said that they are going to fight, but that fight, you know, might need some time to marinate, which it makes sense because right now, they're not at the peak of their star power. Both of them are still on the come up. And he even said, look, if he do something big, we could fight after. But if not, we're going to have to wait. So that fight's going to marinate for a little while. And when it happens, it's going to be big. It's going to be a big, big fight. Andy Cruz versus Keyshawn Davis. The rematch as professionals. Right now, Andy is, I think, 4-0 versus Keyshawn, if I'm not mistaken. But that's in the amateurs. In the professionals, they are 0-0 versus each other. It's a fight that we will get. I feel confident that we'll get that fight. Keyshawn Davis versus El Diamante. The businessman Keyshawn Davis versus El Diamante, Andy Cruz. El Diamante in Spanish, that's the diamond. He's a special fighter. And Keyshawn is a special fighter. So that fight is going to be explosive when they finally share the ring together. You know what two young fighters I believe will end up in the ring together? Kermel Moulton and Zaquin Moses. I think those two, Zaquin is 20 years old right now. Kermel is 19. So they're very close in age. You know, they faced each other in the amateurs. And they're going to be facing each other as professionals. I see that happening at some point. And I look forward to that fight. You know, Kermel and Zaquin, they're both going to become world champions. That's pretty much guaranteed. So that fight may end up happening, you know, for a title unification. Even for undisputed, it could happen. Croc, Tank respected Roach too much, even during the press conference. Watch how Tank turn it up this press conference. My brother, all that stuff that you do in the pressers and in front of cameras, that's not gonna change what happens inside the ring. At the end of the day, both guys are at a very high level. Both of them. That's all that matters. What they say, the trash talking and all that, none of that is gonna change what happens inside the ring. Roach already know what Tank's power looks like. He already knows. Look, you don't realize that the way people approach it is like they're refusing to give Lamar Roach his flowers for an exceptional performance versus Tank Davis. They'd rather say, nah, Tank wasn't the same and Tank was just off. He wasn't focused and, because all of that is just an excuse. Instead of just being honest, Lamar Roach had Tank out of his game. Lamar Roach had Tank out of character. He performed, went through with a great game plan, executed, and made Tank look bad at times. That's the truth. There's no such thing as, well, he was off, he was different. Nah. Thing is, when you're used to seeing a fighter beating everybody up, of course he's going to look different when he's the one getting beat up. Of course. Maker, where do you see Emiliano Vargas going? Emiliano Vargas, his pops, the legend Fernando Vargas, is doing a great job with Emiliano and with his brothers. I think that, they're going through that development process to where I could see them all headed to world titles. Emiliano Vargas is going to become a world champion. I don't know when, who he's going to face. He's a very young fighter, getting experience. They're getting him opponents that are gradually better. I see Emiliano Vargas going far. He's going far. He's going to become a world champion under his father, Fernando Vargas. Boxing on paper, I honestly think Moulton and Italma are future pound-for-pound top 3 in the next few years. I love Mason and Zaquin Moses too, but Moulton and Italma have different energy from the young guys. I mean, look, Italma, honestly, I just started watching him recently, so I can't say as much as you about him. I know that he's very good and has a lot of talent. And they're still in that development process with him. With Kermel Moulton, who I've been following since he was an amateur, I know that he's going to be a world champion. He's a very special fighter. But then again, the same thing with Zaquin Moses. Zaquin, and even Abdullah Mason, you got to understand, Abdullah Mason is already lined up for a title shot. They haven't announced it, but I promise you, he's going to be fighting for that vacant WBO title that Keyshawn Davis was stripped of. So Abdullah Mason is going to become a champion real soon. I would say Abdullah Mason and Kermel Moulton, they right there. When it comes to that talent level, that special level, they're both up there. Look, Mason is special. Zaquin is special. And Kermel is special. All 3 of those guys are going to be big stars. They're all going to be multi-division world champions. It's just that simple. Italma, honestly, I'm not sure because I haven't seen enough of him. But based on the eye test, it looks like he's going to be a big star. Maker, Lamont has a chin on him too, because most guys drop when Tank touches him. Lamont has a chin. But we also have to point out, my brother, that punch that Tank drops people with, sleeps them, he couldn't hit Lamar Roach with that punch. He just couldn't do it. He tried. If you think back at the fight, there were multiple times where you will see Tank Davis like literally just waiting like this, like frozen in front of Lamar for like a second or two, like waiting for a punch so he could counter boom with the, you know, that left uppercut that he's done it to a lot of people. He tried it on Lamar multiple times, couldn't do it, couldn't land it, and couldn't land it flush. So that's the key. Lamar Roach understood Tank's offense to the point where he planned for it and never took nasty punishment that ends fighters' nights from Tank Davis. He didn't. He was very strategic. Even on the inside, from point blank range, Tank Davis was not able to drop, big punches, big combinations consistently on Lamar Roach. He wasn't. Lamar Roach was ready. He was ready and put together a performance that nobody was expecting. Me personally, I told people that Lamar Roach was going to get knocked out by the 9th round or before that. We see how the fight played out. We seen it. Lamar Roach won that fight, and Tank Davis was gifted a W. So this rematch is going to be very interesting, my people. This is a very anticipated rematch. We want to know who's going to win this fight. Look, there's people saying Tank Davis is going to win. There's people like me saying Lamar Roach is going to win. Obviously, I'm saying that understanding that Tank is going to be the favorite. Tank is a pound-for-pound fighter. Tank is a great fighter. And I don't know if he's going to make the right adjustments to win the rematch or to score the knockout. But when we look at the first fight, I don't see anything from that fight to tell me that Tank Davis is going to knock Lamar Roach out. I don't see it. Boxing on paper. Who should get the winner of Tank versus Roach? Shakur. Shakur should get the winner. I mean, if Lamar Roach beats Tank Davis, he already told Shakur that he'll fight him so they could unify titles. They already had that conversation. Shakur spoke about it. Thus, that's what I would expect to happen. If Tank Davis wins, Eddie Hearn said that he'll fight Jake Paul, I think in November or something like that. Which, I'm disappointed. I know everybody's going to have their own opinion about that. I'm disappointed to see, Tank Davis get in the ring with somebody like Jake Paul. Like, that's a waste of a fight. Maker, who you got in Tank versus Shakur? I got Shakur beating Tank by unanimous decision. This is the reason why Tank doesn't want to fight Shakur. It's the same reason why Errol Spence didn't want to fight Terence Crawford. They left Terence Crawford for last because they knew that ass whooping was coming. So they kept pushing it away until they couldn't do it anymore. Tank Davis is doing the same thing with Shakur Stevenson. Pushing him away. Until either it becomes inevitable that he has to fight Shakur or retire. And Tank has already spoke about retirement. That's why, man, look, I'm disappointed in Tank Davis because he's such a great fighter, so explosive, give us, such entertaining knockouts and finishes. But damn, you're already talking about retirement and you haven't fought any of the best out there? I hate that. I hate the fact that Tank Davis has not faced Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. Shit, move up. Fight Boots Ennis at welterweight. Do something crazy. It's like Tank hasn't done any of the things that you would expect from the best. Like, if you're the best, I would have already expected you to fight these people. If you look back at different eras of boxing, by the age of 30, dudes have done for everybody. Look at Floyd Mayweather, how many champions he fought by the age of 30. Look at Oscar De La Hoya, how many champions he's faced by the age of 30. So if you look at great fighters, Muhammad Ali, Smoking Joe Frazier, Sugar Ray Leonard, Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. If you look at great fighters, Lennox Lewis, you're going to see that before the age of 30, they stepped in there with some dogs. They stepped in there, some of them against the very best, before the age of 30. And Tank Davis about to be 31 years old and he's still playing games. Croc. Now that Calvin Ford is back with Tank, that will give him an edge. Now he's back in character. We shall see. We shall see when they fight. That's all I gotta say. Boxing on paper. Tank is a generational great and is so sharp, but I don't think he ever wanted the glory. He seems like he enjoyed the money and the high life more than the glory. I mean, the thing is, my brother, that if you think about it, there will be more money if he fights those glory fights. The money comes with that. Like, if he was to fight Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, he'll make more money than he has ever made versus any other opponent. So if you like the money, fight them for the money. To me, it seems like Tank and his team have been very careful when it comes to the matchmaking to not risk that L, not put him in there versus someone that might beat him. Not even try it, not even risk it. Let's take the sure fights or what we feel confident about. It looks like that's the way that they have handled his whole career. Croc, Tank is like Floyd. He was trying to protect that zero. I mean, but you also have to respect the fact that how many champions, 20 plus champions. Floyd Mayweather fought a lot of great fighters throughout his career. Tank Davis, at this point, he's 30 years old, and the only reigning champion that he faced was Pedraza. Pedraza's the only guy who was a reigning champion in his own division when Tank Davis fought him and beat him. And the reason I say that, to clarify, Mario Barrios at 140 was a secondary title holder. That's not a real title. And Leo Santa Cruz, who won a vacant title at 130, Tank wasn't at 130. Tank was at 135, went down, beat him for that title, and then left the division right away. Never defended that title once. But that wasn't his division. He went down to fight Santa Cruz and left right away. Hasn't beat a single reigning champion in the 135 division. How many years he's been there already? Hasn't beat a single reigning champion at 140, where he only fought one time versus Mario Barrios. So, to see a guy be that age and have not faced any of the main guys, that's crazy. That's why I say, look at De La Hoya, look at Floyd, look at Holyfield, look at Tyson, look at Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran, Smoking Joe, Thomas Hearn, Ali, George Foreman. Look at all the great fighters and their resume prior to them turning 30 years old. And you're going to see that they face some monsters. Some monsters. Come on now. That's why, I didn't even believe that it was possible that Tank Davis could retire without fighting any of the best. I was like, nah, that's not possible. He's going to fight these guys. But now that I see he's 30 years old and talking about retirement, now I'm starting to think that it's possible. In order to retire undefeated, he might decide not to fight any of the best. Now, that's just an assumption, of course. Teofimo Lopez hinted that he might sign with PBC. If he does, that's a potential showdown that we could get. Teofimo Lopez versus Tank Davis. Even though in the past Tank has said that he won't fight Teofimo because he's a racist. Boxing on paper, I think the protect my old mindset is starting to fade. I love seeing the young guys going for it all. Like Moulton talking about Visioli, Mason going for Keyshawn, Itama might get Dylan White next. Now listen, this young generation of fighters, I think that they're gonna change that whole protect the old, model. And they're just gonna go at it with everybody and anybody. Let's see. You could tell that Carmel Moulton is a throwback, has a throwback mentality. I mean, remember, they was willing to turn pro by challenging Lee Wood for his title. He was actually willing to do that. Lee Wood didn't want that. He was like, nah, I'm good. I'll fight you, Floyd. I'm gonna fight the young blood. So we gotta see. We gotta see. I do know that Carmel, Zaquin, and a few other of these young fighters, they're gonna be world champions. Guaranteed. My peoples, I'm about to get the hell out of here. But before I do, as always, I want to give a shout out to everybody who came through, showing love. Y'all already know what it is. My brother, Boxing on Paper, Croc, Maker. Who else came through today? Cypher, David, El Fantasma de Geraldo Ledén, Amar Singh, and everybody else, man. Y'all already know what it is. I'm going to see y'all later tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk boxing. Yo, I'm Jay Smith. This is Box Center, your favorite boxers, favorite boxing show. I'm out of here, my peoples. I'm going to see y'all later tonight.